Okay, so we have the old Bobcat S310 here. The engine went out, so we're gonna do a motor swap. Alright, so let's take a look. Here's the old setup. So you can see the engine pretty good and everything inside here. It's the original Kohler 18 horse. I rebuilt it about 10 years ago. It finally gave out again. So I'm just going to throw a Harbor Freight motor in here. Also, the electric clutch doesn't work. So the first thing that I'm going to knock out is I'm going to hit the battery, take the battery out, so that we can take the door out and give us some more access. Alright, now that the battery's out, I'm going to take the door, sliding door out, so I'm going to take this guy here off, and then I'll be able to lift it up and take it out. Alright, now that that's loose, I'm going to rotate it out of the way. Put it out of here. Okay, so now that the door is out, on this particular Bobcat, is going to see we have our electric clutches down here. Got these two guys down here for the different belts. This has been busted for ages. The low speed's the only one that ever works, and it'll randomly just lock up. So the new motor, I won't need any of that, so I'm just going to toss all that. Plus the wiring on this thing has been a rat's nest because it's 40-something years old. So I'm just going to kind of rip out all the old wiring that's not needed anymore, and then put in a different kind of control box instead of that little dash that's up here. I'm going to get rid of that one, and then it's only got a few wires coming in over here. So I'm just going to cut those out. I'm going to rewire the whole thing while I'm at it. So next thing is I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to take the whole cage out so that we can more easily access the motor and everything else. All right, so now we need to take the cab off. To do that, we're going to have to go and remove the wiring. So you can kind of see it comes through here. You kind of see it's got a rat's nest, and then there's no actual, in this one at least, if you look up in here, it's kind of hard to tell, but there is no actual like plug or anything that we can disconnect. So I'm just going to have to cut the existing wiring here. I'll probably just cut it right down here, right inside here, and I'll probably snip it somewhere around here. And then when I rewire it, I'll just put a couple plugs in so that if I ever need to take the cab back off, it'll be real easy. Alright, so now the 15/16 on this one. Just gonna loosen, take the nuts off, loosen the bolts, so I can slide the bolts out of the way but keep the arms intact. It's pretty tight, but I just want to grab it back, make it easier. Okay, so once you get your nut off, there's another nut inside here, another 15/16. And you just want to hold on to it. You can get bolt loose. Alright, so it took a little bit of finagling to get this off. For some reason this bolt over here didn't want to come all the way out, but the other side did, so I have to figure that out in a little bit. I put a couple metal bars with my lip here, lifting it up a little bit. So that'll be good. Now I can just push the Bobcat out of the way, and then lower it down to the dolly. Alright, let's put it forward. Find over here. Alright, so now that we've got the cab all out of the way, take off this kind of janky muffler temporarily installed, and then free up some space and we'll get rid of the air cleaner. Okay, so let's loosen the clamps for the air cleaner, get the hose out of the way. Alright, so next I'm going to loosen the motor bolt down bolts. There's 4 of them. Actually studs, there's one over here. There's one over here. And there's 2 more up front. Alright, so the 2 front ones, you can see I got the ratchet already on one of them. It's kind of buried down here on that hole. You can see them now right down there. See the slot, and then there's one right across. There's another one right down there. You can see. So we'll loosen those 4. Alright, so now that that's loose, the next issue is going to be the pump tensioner. You can see right here, this guy. So that'll be the interesting part, since the bracket bolt, one end bolts to the motor, and the other one bolts over here to the hydraulic pump bracket. The pump mounts in, that's what's hold the tension, so I may have to fabricate something for the new motor when we get to that point, but for now I'll just go ahead and loosen it and either take the bolt off of that side, separate it from the motor. That's probably what I'll do, and kind of leave this side a little bit more intact and make it easier to mock up when I put it back together. And on this one there's also a washer, there's a spacer behind it, so I have to keep that in mind. Alright, now that everything's loose, I'm going to push the motor forward some. so that we can get the dry belts off. Right about there, I'm already at the end of my stud travel. So I'll go ahead and take the nuts on off, the studs, and see if that'll maybe give me a tiny bit more room. All right, now we got the belts loose out of the way. I'm not going to bother taking them completely out because we have to disconnect the bracket for the high-speed, low-speed clutch mechanism. But there's some wiring still that I need to disconnect. And this I got here is the relay for the handle that you'd use to go between high speed, low speed. That doesn't work at all. I'm not going to be putting any of that back in because it's not worth it. So I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect, get rid of this relay, cut this wiring out of here. All right. So next we're going to get this battery cable out. So it's going to loosen this bolt here. Clamp. It's built-in clamp. Probably down there to use it. I'll just probably leave that on there so I remember to use it. Alright, so next we're going to take the fuel filler neck out. Loosen the clamp down here. Finagling, get it out of here. Okay, now we're going to disconnect the fuel pickup tube. Tank good or not? I used some of that tank sealer on this tank about 5 years ago. It's like you acid wash the inside, and you put the special paint in there, and it's been working great ever since. All right, so next we're going to disconnect the linkage. So this stride up here, this is our throttle linkage. And it's been worn out for ages, and it's pretty funny how it's connected right now. It's literally a piece of rubber hose here with the clamp to keep it from popping out. I don't know where the clip went, and it worked for years and years like that. So there's that throttle linkage disconnected, and then we got to disconnect the choke. The choke is a little more finagling to get it out, but it's literally got some wire over here that holds it in, so we can disconnect it a couple different ways on the choke. Let's just see if we can maybe pop the wire out. Let's take the whole thing out maybe. See if we can get enough play in it, because I don't really care anymore about salvaging it. Alright, there we go. Now our carburetor linkage has been disconnected. Alright, so we're finally ready to start pulling this guy out. As far as I can. And it just kind of sits on these studs. See there? So you don't have a ton in there. It's pretty doggone heavy. I'm going to try and get up to the studs for a second. Yeah. Like so. This is 2x4 maybe or something that under there and make a bridge across so I can slide it on the 2x4 instead of the metal studs. The 2x4 is a little, 2x6 is actually a little too wide. Whacking into those studs down there. So let's see if we can cut a piece of metal maybe. Slide over here. Yeah, that'll work. I don't want it to slide out and then hit my rest on the fuel tank, jack the fuel tank. So it took a little finagling with a couple pry bars, but I was able to get these long metal bars here that I had underneath it. And if you come in from the side over here, you can kind of see where I got a pry bar. There's a gap. And then what that allows you to do, see if I can see it. If you can see it okay. Go under that plate, and I was able to lift it up to get it off the stud and then slide my bar all the way over. So now it should be ready to slide the motor on out. Now that it shouldn't be catching on the studs every time it tries to move. Alright, so now I'm going to pull it back some, and I think it's pretty heavy from what I recall. I may use the lift to help support it, and from $1 I may throw a little more lift before, so let's find out. Right now it's at the tipping point. It's pretty heavy, son. Okay, so now that we got the motor out, I'm going to disconnect some more of this electrical stuff just to kind of free up some space and see what all is useful off this old motor. Just disconnect the old starter cable, and this starter is pretty well trashed because it burned up. And the housing is all completely discolored and everything. So take that out. I always save all my old washers and everything for other projects. Okay, here's one of the old battery cable. I don't know if you can maybe see that real good, but it got so hot. There we go. So you can see right there that it got really hot at some point in time and kind of melted, so I'm just going to chunk this cable. It's not worth the hassle. Okay, now that one's out of the way, so let's finish getting the battery cables out of the way. Off our solenoid, and the solenoid isn't that old that I put on here. So I think I'll just save it because I think it's the exact same one pretty much that my riding lawnmower uses. So no point in getting rid of it. Always gotta drop something. This was there. Made a little pigtail. Save that. Then I can get rid of this. Go through my rat's nest of wiring now. So here's the old motor harness. Throw it up there.
Take this relay off and save it. Okay, now that's out of the way. I'm going to take this bracket here off. So it's got a bolt, comes all the way through to support the electric clutch that doesn't work on the front side. On the back side, there's another bolt that goes into the block. So take it out real quick, and I'll be able to get the belts out of the way. Now that that's out of the way, I can save these belts and we'll see which ones I end up using with the new one. Well, it was kind of interesting. I took the bracket off just to see on this motor, and once I took the bracket off, you can actually spin the whole clutch, and the actual engine turns fine. I don't know if you can hear that puff compression. But there's something else inside here that's jacked up, so this has to stay stationary. You can spin your pulleys, and this back part over here, it turns. It's supposed to turn, but for whatever reason, something inside here seems to have wigged out. So no matter what, when this is bolted in there, it's preventing the entire motor from spinning. All right, so let's take this clutch assembly off just for giggles and see real quick. It's probably going to be wedged. Oh, wait. Yeah, I can see upon further inspection. Let me see if I can get a shot of that. All right, see, I didn't really notice that earlier. I don't know why. But you can see the bearings are completely like coming apart, like the cage is kind of melted and frozen out. So that's why it's spinning now. The whole thing, instead of the shaft being able to spin independently, that bearing is like completely melted over that. So this whole, not so much the motor that seized up, it's just the electric clutch stuff that didn't work right to begin with and you can't get parts for. So it's fine. I'm just going to go and switch the motor anyway because this thing's really old and I got a motor.